Coming up on the next episode. Well, we are back on the IC station FM radio kit, and we're on we left off at step 31, and this says install 5 pieces of D 2.5mm metal button sheet on LCD display module as following tips. Now you can read the tips if you want. Basically it tells you to use mylar tape, which I'm assuming is it says insulating tape. Somebody said mylar tape. I don't know who said that, but somebody said that. Anyway, Scotch tape. There you go, Scotch tape. I didn't do it exactly like they did it. They said to cut it into 7x7mm pieces, and you can see how it turned out there. But mine turned out similarly, and they all work. That's the main thing. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they all click, they all work as they're supposed to. So that's how I did mine. You see I've got some tape on the back there. It shouldn't be a problem. If it is, I can go back anytime I need to and change it around, but I think these will be fine. I wanted plenty of tape on there to make sure these didn't come off, and so that's why I did it that way. But there you go. That's step 31. Alright, well, step 32 wants you to connect the main PCB and the LCD display module, and you note the PCB silk string that VCC connects to VCC on the 2 boards, and that's the way it is set up. The red wire is the VCC, and they are connected correctly. So there you go. There's step 32. Step 33, fix 1 piece of antenna with 1 piece of metal sheet. Now the metal sheet they're talking about is this little tab here. It's got a round eyelet there, and it's got the solder tab on this side. That goes in between the plastic and the metal part there, and the screw goes through both. And so that's a M2 5.5mm screw is what that is. So that's the way that works, and that's in there as it should be now, and that's good. We'll go on to the next step. Step 34, install the battery positive and negative metal sheet on case. Pay attention to their installation position. Now that's important for a couple of reasons. This one, the positive, slides into the this side. There are little tabs on each side of the metal backing plate here that basically only go in one way, and then they don't pull out. They're barbed, I guess is what you would call them. And that's where the plastic one goes. And you can see it does give you a good thing of it there. Now there's the negative one. There you can see that. That sticks up through there like that. And that is mounted from the bottom. You have to take the cover off, the battery cover, which goes in there like that. So you have to take that off and slide that in there and get that in down. It's got the same little barb tabs on it. And once you push it down there, it should stay there. And then these will be soldered in a next step, or soon to be step, I guess. They'll get soldered on. So there you go. There's a look at step 34, all done. And I think that should, hope that gives you enough information there to do that. The instructions are a little bit light on that because they show it just like this. Really, you can't see this side that well. They've got a little red circle around it, but at the same time, you know, it says nothing about having to take the battery cover off and pushing it down on this side. So I just wanted to kind of make that clear. There you go. Step 34 is done. On to the next step. Alright, step 35, connect the 1 piece of the D57mm speaker. That's this speaker right here. And that gets connected via a blue and a white wire. It looks like blue and white. Could be blue and gray. I'm not really sure. But there's 2 wires. That should be the only 2 left, I think, in there right now. They go through basically from one terminal of the speaker here to SP2. and for the other terminal speaker here to SP1, and they solder on the back side of the board. And that's pretty much all there is to that. And that's step 35. And it says that the speaker does not need to distinguish between positive and negative poles, and that's probably true. So there you go. Step 35 is complete. Let's go on to step 36. Alright, step 36. Install one piece of black button cap on the self-locking switch, and that is, as you've seen in the picture there, that is this one right here. And I think it only goes on one way. It's kind of elongated on one side. Should be an easy thing to sort out. There's the way that works. And in a step on down the line, we'll be changing some things around with those push buttons. So we'll get to that in a minute. But there you go. That's what that looks like. It just basically slides up on top of there. It's a pretty good fit. I mean, it's not going to come off real easy. So there you go. That's step 36. Let's go on to step 37. So in step 37, it's very simple. Take the wire that gray wire, I believe it is, for the antenna. Solder that onto the antenna lug. You can see it in the instructions. And that's very clear. And I'll show you that, lift that up a little bit so you can see that's soldered on there. You have to basically grab hold of that with something, a pick or something, and bend it up just a little bit so you can get under, to solder it and things like that. So you can push it back down afterwards. It's fine. So that's all that step 37 is. Let's go on to step 38. Alright, step 38 is to solder the two pieces of 80mm red and wire to the positive metal sheet and connect the 80mm black wire to the negative sheet. Now I mistakenly called this the positive terminal before. It is obviously the negative battery end. And that's how that's connected. Now it didn't say to, but I tinned the little tabs with some solder on each one of these, and then I connected the wires up. I think that it works a little bit better to connect the wires. Basically you just heat it up and put the wire to it, and the wire is already tinned, so it should work out rather well, I think. So that is step 38. Let's move on now to step 39. Alright, well, as you can see in front of you, the radio is complete. I'm going to go over the steps that I didn't get filmed or videoed. Step 39, install two pieces AA batteries, not included. Counterclockwise rotation, frequency regulator, audio adjust gear on the capacitor so that the display shows the minimum frequency, which I did, but I'm going to show you. And this is hard to see because the batteries I'm using apparently are not the best. I'll try to hold it up like that. You can hear it does work. Let me go as far up as I can get. Now there's your bottom frequency, 80.2. That's as close as I can get it. And I'm going to explain that why in just a second. Let me go to the top end now and show you. It's almost 120. So I'm at 80 to 120, I'm going to say, is where I'm at. And the reason for that is if you read on down on the instructions, let me turn this back off because them batteries are not very good. If you read on down the instructions, it says just the distance between the coils. I had that spread as far apart as it would go. And there was no place else to go with it. And I did finally get it down to 87 where it wanted to be. But then the next step is you put the frequency back up to the top of the dial, which is normally 108 or something like that. And it said to adjust the potentiometer C1.1 or -1 to 108.6. Now there is absolutely, positively no way that will do that on this radio. I don't know if other ones are different, but this one would not go down below 120. And it says you're supposed to basically tweak the two settings back and forth to get it where you want it. And the only other way I could do it as far as making, because the coil was already spread as far as it was going to go, and I could make it come closer, but it never would go down below 120. So I ended up settling that, put the coil back to a normal looking position, and that was at 80. And so I ended up going 80 to 120 and just said that's good enough. All the frequencies work. Let me show you that the radio does work, and then we'll go over the rest of the steps, which, you know, it's just assembling the case basically. Let's see. Get our station back here. You can hear the radio picks up fine.
Submit. Mark, what was the very... A year later. Now, you know, we got to be together basically every single day for a year.
There's our strong station there. Plenty of volume to it. Might have a little too tight on that because it's rubbing against the thing. But there you go. That's working. It's just fine. That's our educational NPR, whatever you want to call it, station out of Bloomington. That seems to be the strongest station around here. So there you go. That's it. Turn that off. The clock works also. I've got it set. It's currently 11:43. As you can see, it is 11:43. So there you go. That's that. Now let's go over the finishing instructions just to show you that it's not that difficult. And if we go on past this, there's some other things about, you know, in case there's noise and stuff like that. But then it goes on to explain the campus broadcast frequency range 72 to 92, and we're not concerned with that. We don't have that here. And then that's the other one's the aircraft, and we're not doing that either. So let's go on to the next step. Step 40. Now this one is a little tricky. You have to cut the piece of the, and here's the one I cut off. There's what it looks like. You just cut that off. That's these buttons here. And because this one is got his own button that goes through there, we put that on the previous step if you'll recall. But that's what that is, and the rest of them let the alarm functions and setting the clock, things like that, and that's what they're for. So that is a pretty straightforward step. Nothing to that. Just get the right one. That's the only thing to make sure that you do. Next is the black button position. It shows you that it does go through that hole right there. That's not a big deal, but you know, there you go. And like I said, this is the part where you put it all together. You want to be careful when you install the screws in there on the display, just to install the top screws. Bottom screws are screwed in after the radio is basically put together. It goes through the battery holder, and they screw in that bottom piece there on the frequency display. So that's, you kind of want to make sure you do that right. So that's that. Let's go to the next step. Next step is you want to make sure that you put the thing together, and like I said, that's there's some confusion on the black wire there. I ended up doing that too, taking it off because it was the wires were crossed, and I didn't like the way it was working like that. So I basically just unsoldered it real quick, and then put it, you know, where it should, the way the wires should go, and put the solder connection back on. And that was about all there was to that. Next thing is you just snap it together and put the screws in. Again, there you can see the bottom there. Those are the two screws that go through the display board, and they also go through the bottom of the case, and you know, from the battery compartment. That one long screw is obviously longer. It's pretty easy to tell, the 8mm screw in the middle. And then the top ones are just like the bottom ones. They same size screws, and they screw in the top. You have to, of course, obviously move the antenna out of the way a little bit to get that in there, but that's that. And that's pretty much it. There you go. That's what it looks like when it's done, and that's pretty much what this one looks like, except for except for you got the time showing. But again, it works just fine. There was a problem with this, and I'm going to explain that. And it's not a big problem, but it was a problem. My fault, not the fault of the kit. When I was doing this, basically this tuning procedure, I noticed there was no sound coming at all out of the speaker. Every time I would turn the tuning dial, nothing would happen. So I'm gonna bring up the schematic of this. Bob, by the way, was instrumental in getting this thing working, because he found the schematic online and sent me a picture of it. And there's what that looks like. And that's the basically the whole kit radio there. And again, that's how how it looks like in a schematic form. So basically what it was, I noticed when I was doing it, I could touch a certain spot on the tuning capacitor, one of the screws on the outside there, and when I did that, I would hear noise. But otherwise, if I didn't touch it, nothing happened. And nothing, no noise, no nothing. At first I thought it was a problem with the sound chip, and then the more I started playing with it, I figured it out that it was something to do with the antenna. And if you look at the antenna circuit there from on pin 1 of the CD 2003 GP chip, that's the radio chip, that is the FM in. That's where your signal comes into the chip. And you see it goes through C4 there, goes through another capacitor at C5, and basically comes into a transistor, which is the 9018Q1, and that's the collector in. And basically I was not getting, I could touch certain places on the in other words, pin 1, if I put a tool on pin 1, screwdriver or whatever, and touched that, I had good reception. And I thought, well, again, that's the antenna. So basically I traced down to the transistor. I thought at first the transistor was bad, and then Bob said, well, maybe you got a bridge or something like that. And I checked it real good, and there was no bridge. So I went ahead and took the transistor out, checked it with my meter. It checked good. Put the transistor back in, and lo and behold, this thing works fine. So obviously I must not have had a good solder joint on one of the transistor legs. It's the only thing I can think of. So again, once I put it back in, it works fine. No problem at all. So that was, again, my problem, my bad mess up there. So no problem with the kit at all. I'm happy with the kit. The kit went together rather well, other than the instructions on that frequency thing. Now I don't know if that's something I'm doing wrong, or just something that maybe it's just inherent in the design of the radio. I don't know. But anyway, thumbs up, a big thumbs up for the kit itself. It is a good, decent kit, and not that hard to build. Probably a little bit hard on the little buttons there for the clock set, because of the tape needed and things like that. They probably could come up with a better way of doing that. But other than that, really not that bad. And again, happy with it. And I think it turned out well in the end. Again, it does work, and seems to pick up all the stations that I'm usually used to getting here, and very happy with it. So that's going to do me for this one. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and it helped you a little bit if you did buy this kit or whatever. There's always unique things that happen. Any kit you build, there's maybe a problem or whatever, and it's nice to have somebody go through and tell what they did as far as what they ran into and things like that. So I think it worked out rather well, and I'm happy. And like I said, we're going to get off here now, and you guys have a pleasant day. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see ya.